The black janitor's daughter took over her sick father's job, and the millionaire was fascinated by her. Her name was Amira Coleman, and she wore her dying father's oversized janitor uniform, desperate to keep his job secret while he fought terminal cancer at home. Every night, she'd sneak into the towering glass building in downtown Charlotte, praying nobody would notice the real janitor hadn't shown up for weeks. Have you ever worked a job where you felt invisible? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The 19-year-old girl mopping the marble floors of Sterling Technologies had no idea she was about to destroy a billionaire's empire with a single flash drive. Her name was Amira Coleman, and she wore her dying father's oversized janitor uniform, desperate to keep his job secret while he fought terminal cancer at home. Every night, she'd sneak into the towering glass building in downtown Charlotte, praying nobody would notice the real janitor hadn't shown up for weeks. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. The CEO watching her from the executive elevator wasn't just any rich man. He was the son of the businessman who had destroyed her family years ago, and neither of them knew it yet. What happens when a janitor's daughter discovers the corporate secret that could topple a billion-dollar empire? Have you ever worked a job where you felt invisible? Where people looked right through you like you didn't exist? Maybe you've cleaned offices after hours or served food to people who never bothered to learn your name. Tonight, we're diving into the true story of how class, race, and corporate greed collided in the heart of Charlotte, North Carolina. This isn't just another rich boy meets poor girl story. This is about power, revenge, and the price of truth in America. Amira thought she was just trying to save her father's job. She had no clue she was about to uncover financial crimes worth millions. She didn't know that falling for the wrong man would force her to choose between love and justice. And she definitely didn't know that the handsome billionaire offering to change her life was connected to her family's darkest chapter. Stay with me to discover how one flash drive changed everything, and whether love can survive when it's built on lies, blood money, and buried secrets. Before we get deep into this story, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Are you Team Love or Team Revenge? Hit that subscribe button because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about power and justice in America. Trust me, what happens next will have you on the edge of your seat. This girl walked into his billion-dollar world wearing her father's uniform, but she's about to walk out owning his heart or destroying his life forever. Now, let me take you back to where it all started, on a cold Tuesday night in February. Nobody at Sterling Technologies knew that Ronald Coleman hadn't shown up for work in 3 weeks. His daughter Amira made sure of that. Every night at 9 p.m., she'd park her beaten-up Honda Civic in the employee garage, slip in her father's navy blue uniform, and badge into the building like she belonged there. The uniform hung loose on her small frame, but she'd learned to walk with her shoulders back, head down, moving like she was invisible. Because that's what janitors were supposed to be, right? Invisible. Her father lay in bed at home, too weak from chemo to lift his head most days. The medical bills kept coming, $8,000 for the last round of treatment, $3,000 for the new medication, $500 for the oxygen machine. Their insurance covered maybe half of it. The rest? That was on them. "Baby girl, you don't have to do this," Ronald had whispered last week, his voice barely audible. "I can call Mr. Peterson, explain the situation." But Amira knew better. Corporate cleaning companies didn't do compassion. They did replacements. Fast ones. So here she was, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies through the pristine hallways of one of Charlotte's most powerful corporations. The building hummed with leftover energy from the day. Computer screens still glowing, coffee cups abandoned on expensive desks, the faint smell of printer ink and ambition hanging in the air. She'd gotten good at this. Vacuum the conference rooms first, empty the trash bins, wipe down surfaces. The executive floors required special attention. Real wood polish, not the cheap stuff. She learned to read the nameplates on the office doors, wondering what it felt like to have that kind of power. Landon Royce, Chief Executive Officer. His office was always spotless when she arrived, like he barely used it. But tonight felt different. The lights were still on up there, casting shadows down the marble staircase. She could hear voices, angry ones. Amira checked her watch. 11:47 p.m. The building should be empty by now. She'd been working here for 3 weeks, and the routine never changed. Security did one walkthrough at 10 p.m., then disappeared until morning. The overnight cleaning crew, well, just for now, had the run of the place until 6 a.m. But those voices were getting louder. Her father's badge would get her into most areas, but the executive floor was different. Higher security, different access codes. She wasn't supposed to be up there. Still, curiosity got the better of her. She left her cart by the elevator and pressed the button for the 47th floor. The doors closed with a soft whisper, and she felt her stomach drop as the elevator climbed. The voices stopped. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway that looked like it belonged in a palace, not an office building. Marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and carpet so thick her footsteps made no sound. That's when she realized she wasn't alone up here. Someone was watching her. Landon Royce hadn't slept properly in 6 months. At 24, he was the youngest CEO in Sterling Technologies history, and the pressure was crushing him slowly. Every morning brought new headlines about his boy genius status, his billions, his perfect life. Every night brought the same crushing insomnia that had him pacing his penthouse until dawn. That's why he was still in the office at midnight, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at Charlotte's skyline. His board members had left hours ago, but their threats still echoed in his mind. The Henderson deal closes next week, Landon. Don't screw this up. Your father built this company. Don't let your inexperience destroy it. Maybe we need someone with more maturity running things. His father, always his father. James Royce had been a legend in the business world, brilliant, ruthless, successful. He'd built Sterling Technologies from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar empire. When he died in that car accident 2 years ago, he'd left Landon everything. The company, the fortune, the pressure to live up to an impossible standard. And Victoria Hayes, his fiancée, sat across from him now, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone with the kind of bored elegance that came from growing up in Senator Hayes' mansion. Their engagement had been announced 6 months ago, a merger of 2 powerful families, according to the press. The tech fortune and the political dynasty joining forces. "You're doing it again," Victoria said without looking up. "The brooding thing. It's not attractive." Landon turned from the window. "I'm thinking. About what? We've been over the Henderson contracts 100 times. Just sign the papers and move on." But that was the problem. The Henderson deal felt wrong. Too much money moving too fast through too many offshore accounts. When he'd asked his board for clarification, they'd changed the subject. When he'd pressed harder, they'd suggested he was overthinking things. Maybe he was. Maybe this was just how business worked at this level. The elevator dinged softly, and Landon frowned. Security wasn't supposed to come up here until morning rounds. "Are you expecting someone?" Victoria asked, finally looking up from her phone. Before he could answer, the elevator doors opened, and a girl stepped out. Young, maybe 19, wearing a janitor's uniform that was way too big for her. She moved carefully, like she was trying not to disturb anything. For a moment, nobody spoke. The girl looked terrified, caught somewhere she obviously wasn't supposed to be. But her eyes, there was something in her eyes that made Landon forget about Henderson deals and board meetings and sleepless nights. She looked at him like he was just a person, not a CEO or a billionaire or a headlines. Like he was human. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know anyone was still here." The girl in the janitor's uniform stood frozen in the elevator doorway, her dark eyes wide with fear. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the building's air conditioning. Victoria's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Security breach. Called building security, Landon." But Landon couldn't move. Something about this girl, the way she held herself, the intelligence in her eyes despite her obvious terror, made him curious instead of angry. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Amira," she whispered. "Amira Coleman. I'm just here to clean." At midnight, Victoria's tone was ice cold. "That's not standard cleaning hours." Amira's jaw tightened slightly. Night shift. We clean when you're not here, so we don't disturb your important business. The slight edge in her voice surprised Landon. Most people spoke to him with either fear or fake respect. This girl sounded real. Your badge, Victoria demanded. Let me see your employee badge. Amira's hand moved to the badge clipped to her uniform. For just a second, Landon saw something flicker across her face. Panic, maybe guilt. But she unclipped it and held it out. Ronald Coleman. Victoria read aloud. This says Ronald Coleman. Are you Ronald Coleman? That's my father. So you're using someone else's badge to access a secure building? Victoria's voice turned sharp. That's fraud. Corporate espionage. I'm calling security right now. Wait. Landon stepped forward. Why are you using your father's badge? Amira's eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw something raw and desperate there. He's sick. Cancer. I'm just trying to help him keep his job. The words hit him harder than they should have. Here was this girl, maybe 19 years old, working a night shift job to save her father's income. Meanwhile, he was sitting in a billion-dollar office, complaining about pressure. That's not our problem, Victoria said, her phone already in her hand. Rules are rules. But Landon was studying Amira's face. How long has he been sick? 3 months. The treatments are expensive, and we can't afford to lose his health insurance. So you've been doing his job for 3 months? Landon felt something shift in his chest. Every night, someone has to. Victoria's phone was already ringing. Yes, this is Victoria Hayes. We have an unauthorized person on the executive floor. Hang up, Landon said quietly. What? I said hang up the phone. Victoria stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Landon, she's breaking the law. She doesn't belong here. Neither do we at this hour. He turned back to Amira. You were heading somewhere specific when you got on that elevator. Where? Amira hesitated. I heard voices. Angry voices. I wanted to make sure everything was okay. You were worried about our safety? The idea seemed impossible. Why would you care? Because she stopped, like she was trying to find the right words. Because even rich people don't deserve to get hurt. Victoria made a disgusted sound. This is ridiculous. I'm calling security. But as she reached for her phone again, Amira spoke up. Before you do that, you might want to know what I found downstairs. Both Landon and Victoria froze. What did you find? Landon asked. Amira reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small black flash drive. This was hidden behind Mr. Peterson's desk, in a place where nobody would find it unless they were really cleaning. She held it up, and the light caught it just right. I think you're going to want to see what's on here. The flash drive felt heavier than it should have in Amira's palm. Such a small thing to hold so much power. Landon's eyes were locked on it. Where exactly did you find this? Taped under Mr. Peterson's desk drawer. I only found it because it was cleaning underneath and the tape came loose. Amira's voice was steady, but her heart was racing. I probably shouldn't have looked at it. But you did, Victoria said coldly. I did. And Landon stepped closer. What did you see? Amira took a breath. This was it. The moment that would change everything, and she knew it. Financial records, transfers, accounts with names I didn't recognize, and a lot of money moving to places it probably shouldn't be. The silence stretched between them. Victoria's face had gone pale, but Landon's expression was unreadable. How much do you know about corporate finance? He asked. Nothing, but I know what stealing looks like. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Victoria's phone buzzed as she glanced at it nervously. This is insane, she whispered. We don't even know if it's real. This girl could be lying, could be trying to blackmail us. But Landon wasn't listening to Victoria anymore. He was studying Amira's face, and she could see him making calculations behind his eyes. You could have just thrown it away, he said finally. Pretended you never saw it. Why didn't you? Because that's not who I am. Even though bringing it to me could get you in trouble, could cost your father's job. Amira's throat tightened. That was exactly what she'd been thinking about for the past hour. Her father needed this job. They needed the insurance, the steady paycheck, the security. But she couldn't just pretend she hadn't seen what was on that drive. My father raised me to do the right thing, she said quietly. even when it's hard. Something shifted in Landon's expression. What kind of man is he? Your father. The kind who worked 2 jobs to send me to community college. The kind who never missed a parent-teacher conference, even when he was exhausted. The kind who taught me that your character is what you do when nobody's watching. And what do you think the right thing is here? Amira looked down at the flash drive, then back up at him. I think someone needs to see what's on here. Someone who can do something about it. That could be dangerous, Victoria interrupted. For all of us. More dangerous than letting it continue. Amira shot back. How many people are getting hurt while we stand here having this conversation? Landon moved to his computer. Give it to me. Landon, no. Victoria's voice was sharp with panic. Think about what you're doing. Think about the company, your reputation, the Henderson deal. The Henderson deal? Amira asked. What's that? Landon's fingers paused over the keyboard. A merger we're finalizing next week. Worth about $2 billion. Is that what's on here? I don't know yet. He held out his hand. But I'm about to find out. Amira looked at the flash drive one more time, then placed it in his palm. Their fingers brushed for just a second, and she felt something electric pass between them. Whatever happens next, she said, I'm glad I found you. The flash drive clicked into Landon's computer with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire office. Victoria paced behind them, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown timer. This is a mistake, she kept saying. This is a huge mistake. But Landon was already opening files, his face growing darker with each click. Amira watched from beside his desk, trying to read his expression as numbers and documents filled the screen. Oh my God, he whispered. What? Amira leaned closer, catching the scent of his cologne mixed with the stressed sweat that had been building all evening. Peterson's been moving money, millions of dollars. Company money. His voice was hollow, into accounts that don't exist, through shell companies that lead nowhere. How much money? Victoria asked, her voice barely audible. $43 million. Over the past 6 months. The number hit the room like a physical blow. Amira felt her knees go weak. $43 million. More money than she could even understand. That's not possible, Victoria said. Peter Peterson has been with this company for 15 years. He's family. Family doesn't steal from family, Landon said quietly. He kept clicking through files. Look at this. The Henderson deal. Half of the money is supposed to go to consulting fees for companies that don't actually exist. What does that mean? Amira asked. It means the Henderson deal is fake. It's a way to move more money out of Sterling Technologies and into Peterson's pockets. Landon's voice was getting stronger, angrier. He's been planning this for months, maybe longer. Victoria sank into a chair. If this gets out, it'll destroy the company. The stock price will crash, the board will panic, the media will tear us apart. Good, Amira said, surprising herself with how fierce she sounded. If your company is built on stolen money, maybe it should crash. You don't understand, Victoria snapped. This isn't just about money. There are thousands of employees, pension funds, investors. Real people will get hurt. Real people are already getting hurt. Amira shot back. What about the people that money was stolen from? What about the shareholders who trusted you? Landon looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. Respect, maybe. Admiration. She's right, he said quietly. This ends now. What are you going to do? Victoria asked. I'm going to call the FBI. Tonight. Landon, no. Think about this. There has to be another way. But he was already reaching for his phone. There is no other way. This is who we are, Victoria. This is what we do when nobody's watching. He looked at Amira as he said it, and she felt something pass between them that was bigger than the flash drive, bigger than the money, bigger than the difference in their worlds. Thank you, he said, for having the courage to do what's right. As he dialed, Amira realized her life had just changed forever. She'd walked into this building as a janitor's daughter, trying to save her father's job. She was about to walk out as the girl who brought down a corporate empire. The question was, would she survive what came next? 3 days after the FBI raid on Sterling Technologies, Amira's world turned upside down again. She was sitting in a hospital cafeteria, picking at a stale sandwich she couldn't afford when Landon walked in. He looked different, tired, older somehow, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt instead of his usual expensive suits. "How did you find me?" she asked as he sat down across from her. "Your father's in room 314. The nurse said you've been here for 2 days straight." Amira's chest tightened. Her father had collapsed the morning after the FBI took Peterson away in handcuffs. The stress, the doctor said. His body couldn't handle any more shock. "The cancer's spreading," she said quietly. "They want to try a new treatment, but insurance won't cover it. Experimental, they said." "How much?" $12,000. Might as well be 30 million. Landon pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table between them. "Open it." Her hand shook as she tore it open. Inside was a letter from Duke University. A full scholarship. For years, everything paid for. Housing, books, meal plans. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You saved my company. You saved my reputation. You probably saved my life." His voice was rough. "This is the least I can do. I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because..." She struggled to find words. "Because it feels like you're paying me off. Like you're trying to buy my silence." Landon's eyes flashed with something that looked like hurt. "Is that what you think of me?" "I don't know what to think. 3 days ago, you were engaged to a senator's daughter. Today you're offering me a scholarship to Duke. People are going to talk. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. You're not the janitor's daughter who brought down a billion-dollar company." "No," he said quietly. "I'm the CEO who was too blind to see what was happening in his own boardroom." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling between them. "The FBI asked me about you," Amira said finally. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That you had nothing to do with Peterson's scheme. That you were as shocked as anyone. And they believed you?" "They did. Turns out, when a janitor's daughter testifies that a billionaire is innocent, people listen." Landon almost smiled. "You could have destroyed me. One wrong word to the FBI, and they would have assumed I was involved. But you weren't. How would you know?" Amira looked at him, really looked at him. "Because I've been watching you for 3 weeks. I've seen how you work, how you treat people. You're not like Peterson. I'm not like my father either." The words came out before he could stop them, and Amira saw something vulnerable in his expression. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, her phone rang. The hospital. Her father was awake, asking for her. "Take the scholarship," Landon said as she stood up. "Not because I'm buying you off. Because you earned it." The boardroom at Sterling Technologies felt like a war zone. Amira sat in the corner, taking notes as Landon's new assistant, watching 12 middle-aged men in expensive suits tear each other apart. The Peterson scandal had sent shockwaves through the company, and everyone was looking for someone to blame. "This is what happens when you let children run billion-dollar companies," Mr. Henderson said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your father would be ashamed." Landon's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "My father's not here. I am. Maybe that's the problem." "The problem," Landon shot back, "is that you all knew Peterson was stealing money and nobody said a word." "We didn't know." Another board member protested. "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." Amira watched the power dynamics play out, fascinated despite herself. These men had been running things for decades, and now a 24-year-old was calling them out. She could see the anger in their eyes, the fear. "What about her?" Henderson nodded toward Amira. "Since when do we bring janitors into board meetings?" "Since janitors started showing more integrity than board members." The room went dead silent. Amira felt 12 pairs of eyes turn toward her, and she forced herself to sit up straighter. "You're making a mistake, Landon," Henderson said quietly. "Mixing business with charity cases." "Charity cases?" Amira's voice cut through the room before she could stop herself. "Is that what you call people who work for a living?" "I call them people who know their place." "My place?" Amira stood up, her hands shaking with anger. "My place is wherever I earn the right to be. And right now, I've earned the right to be here because I'm the one who found your corruption." Henderson's face turned red. "You're out of line." "No, you're out of line. You sat in this room for years, taking salaries and bonuses while Peterson stole millions. You want to talk about knowing your place?" Maybe you should remember that your place is serving the shareholders, not yourselves." The room erupted. Half the board members were shouting. The other half were staring at Amira like she'd grown a second head. "Enough," Landon said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This meeting is over." "We're not finished," Henderson said. "Yes, we are. Peterson's gone. The FBI investigation is closed. We're moving forward, with or without your support. You'll regret this," Henderson said as he gathered his papers. "Both of you." As the board members filed out, Amira sank back into her chair. Her heart was pounding, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have said anything." "Are you kidding?" Landon turned to her, his eyes bright with something that looked like admiration. "That was incredible. Nobody's ever stood up to them like that. I probably just made things worse for you." "No, you made them better. You showed them what real courage looks like." They were standing close now, closer than they should be in a corporate boardroom. Amira could smell his cologne again, could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Amira," he said quietly. "Mr. Royce," she whispered back. "Call me Landon." The moment stretched between them, electric and dangerous. Then Amira's phone buzzed with a text message that made her blood run cold. It was from an unknown number. "We know about you and the CEO. Stay away from him, or your father dies." The photo hit the internet at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amira and Landon, standing close together in the hospital cafeteria, his hand on her shoulder, her looking up at him with something that could have been love or gratitude or both. The caption read, "Billion-dollar scandal. CEO's secret affair with janitor who exposed corporate fraud." By noon, it was everywhere. CNN, Fox News, TMZ, every gossip blog and financial website in the country. The story had everything: money, power, romance, betrayal. The media was eating it alive. Amira's phone hadn't stopped ringing since 7 a.m. Reporters camped outside her apartment building. Her community college classmates were selling stories about her to tabloid magazines. Someone had even tracked down her high school yearbook photos. "Poor little Cinderella" or "gold-digging schemer," read one headline. From mop to millions. The real story behind a sterling technology scandal. CEO's new love interest, hero or homewrecker. The worst part was the comments. Thousands of them, dissecting every detail of her life, her appearance, her family's financial situation. The racism was barely hidden behind corporate speak and concern trolling. She's obviously using him for money. What does a billionaire see in a janitor? Something doesn't add up. This is what happens when people don't know their place. Landon found her crying in the supply closet at Sterling Technologies, hiding from the reporters who'd somehow gotten past building security. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't handle all these people talking about me, judging me." "Hey," he said softly, kneeling down beside her. "Look at me." She raised her tear-stained face to his. "They're saying terrible things about my father, about our family. They're making it sound like we're criminals. They're wrong. But what if they're right? What if I'm just some poor girl who doesn't belong in your world?" Landon's hands cupped her face gently. "You belong wherever you want to belong. You're the bravest person I know." "I don't feel brave. I feel scared." "Good. Scared means you're paying attention." Before she could respond, the supply closet door burst open. Victoria stood there, her face twisted with fury, flanked by 2 security guards. "Really, Landon? A supply closet? How romantic." Amira scrambled to her feet, embarrassed and angry. "We weren't doing anything wrong." "Oh, sweetie." Victoria's voice dripped with false sympathy. "Everything you do is wrong. You're a walking scandal." "Victoria, stop," Landon said, standing up. "No, I won't stop. Do you have any idea what this is doing to your reputation? To the company? The board is calling for your resignation. Let them call. I'm trying to save you from yourself, Landon. This girl is going to destroy everything you've worked for." "What I've worked for?" Landon's voice was dangerously quiet. "Or what you've worked for?" Victoria's mask slipped for just a second, and Amira saw something cold and calculating underneath. "Same thing," Victoria said. "We're supposed to be a team. Teams don't threaten each other Amira said quietly. Both Landon and Victoria turned to look at her. "What did you say?" Victoria asked. Amira pulled out her phone and showed them the threatening text message. "Someone sent me this yesterday, right after the board meeting." Landon's face went white as he read it. "Who sent this?" "I don't know, but whoever was knows about us, and they're willing to hurt my father to stop it." Ronald Coleman was dying, and he knew it. The cancer had spread to his liver, his lungs, his bones. The new treatment wasn't working. The doctors gave him weeks, maybe a month, if he was lucky. But there was something he needed to tell his daughter before he ran out of time. "Baby girl," he whispered as Amira held his hand. "Come closer." She leaned down, her ear near his lips. His voice was so weak now, barely a whisper. "There's something I never told you. About your mother. About why she left." Amira's breath caught. Her mother had walked out when she was 5 years old, and her father had never talked about it. Just said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that it wasn't Amira's fault. "Daddy, you don't have to." "Ido." "Because it's about them. About the Royce family." The name hit her like a physical blow. "What about them?" Ronald's eyes filled with tears. 20 years ago, I had a business. Coleman Construction. Small company, but it was doing well. We had contracts, employees, a future. I remember the office. The yellow building downtown. James Royce, Landon's father. He wanted to buy the land where our office was. "Prime real estate," he said. "Worth millions for development." Amira's stomach started to turn. "What happened?" "I wouldn't sell. The business was all I had, all I could leave you. So he found another way." "What way?" "He bribed the building inspector. Made up code violations that didn't exist. Forced us to shut down while we fought in court. But legal fees ate up everything. We lost the business, the building, everything." "Oh, Daddy, your mother." "She couldn't handle it. The stress, the shame, losing everything we'd worked for. She started drinking, then disappeared one night. Left a note saying she couldn't watch our family fall apart." Amira felt like she was drowning. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to carry that anger, that hate. I wanted you to have a better life. But now I'm working for his son. I'm falling in love with his son." Ronald's grip on her hand tightened. "That's why I'm telling you now. Because Landon isn't his father. I've been watching the news, reading about what he's doing at the company. He's trying to fix things. But how can I trust him? How can I love someone whose father destroyed our family? Because sins of the father don't pass to the son. Not unless he chooses to carry them." Amira was crying now. Everything she thought she knew about her life crumbling around her. "There's more," Ronald said. "I kept files. Evidence of what James Royce did. It's all in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 247. The key is in my bedroom dresser, taped under the bottom drawer." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have a choice to make. You can use that evidence to destroy the Royce family, get revenge for what they did to us. Or you can choose to forgive, to build something new. What would you do?" Ronald smiled weakly. "I'd choose love, baby girl. I'd choose love over revenge every time." 3 hours later, he was gone. The announcement came during Ronald Coleman's funeral. Amira was standing at her father's graveside, surrounded by maybe 20 people from their neighborhood, when her phone started buzzing with news alerts. Through her tears, she saw the headlines. Breaking: Victoria Hayes pregnant with Sterling Technologies CEO's baby. Senator's daughter announces pregnancy amid corporate scandal. Landon Royce to be father as romance with janitor continues. The ground felt like it was shifting beneath her feet. She stared at the screen, reading the same words over and over, trying to make sense of them. Victoria was pregnant with Landon's baby. The funeral director was saying something about final prayers, but Amira couldn't hear him anymore. The world had gone silent, except for the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Her phone rang. Landon. She declined the call. It rang again and again. "Amira," her neighbor Mrs. Washington said gently, "you need to turn that off. Show some respect for your father." But Amira was already walking away from the grave, away from the mourners, away from everything. She needed air. She needed space to think. By the time she got home, there were reporters camped outside her apartment building again. This time, their questions were different. How does it feel to be the other woman? Did you know about the pregnancy? Will you continue working for Mr. Royce? She pushed through them without answering, her keys shaking in her hand as she tried to unlock her door. Inside, she collapsed on her couch and finally answered Landon's calls. Amira, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Is it true? Her voice was flat, emotionless. What? The pregnancy. Victoria's pregnancy. Silence. Long enough to tell her everything she needed to know. It's complicated, he said finally. Complicated how? Either she's pregnant or she's not. She says she is. You don't believe her? I don't know. The timing doesn't make sense. We haven't been intimate in months. But you could have been. Before me. Yes. The word hit her like a slap. So she could be telling the truth. Amira, listen to me. Whatever's happening with Victoria, it doesn't change how I feel about you. How you feel about me. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're about to be a father with another woman. Your fiancé. What we had was just a distraction. No, it was real. It is real. I buried my father today, Landon. I'm grieving. I'm alone. And now I find out the man I thought I loved is having a baby with his senator's daughter fiancé. I can't do this right now. Amira, please. She hung up. Outside, the reporters were still shouting questions. Inside, her apartment felt empty without her father's presence. And somewhere in the city, Victoria Hayes was probably celebrating her perfect timing. Amira had never felt more alone in her life. 6 months later, Amira Coleman sat in her Duke University dorm room, staring at a laptop screen that could destroy the man she'd once loved. Everything had changed since that night with the flash drive. The FBI investigation had torn through Sterling Technologies like wildfire. Peter Peterson was in federal prison. The company had survived, barely, but the media attention had been brutal. And somewhere in the chaos, Amira had discovered the truth about her family's past. Landon's father hadn't just been a successful businessman. He'd been a destroyer of dreams. The Coleman family had owned a small tech startup in 2003, her father's pride and joy after leaving the Navy. They created software that revolutionized inventory management for small businesses. It was brilliant, innovative, and worth millions. Until James Royce stole it. He'd approached them as an investor, learned everything about their system, then launched a patent lawsuit that dragged on for 3 years. The legal fees had bankrupted them. Ronald Coleman had lost his company, his savings, his future. That's why he'd ended up working as a janitor, the only job he could find after being blacklisted from the tech industry. And now his daughter was sitting in a dorm room that Landon Royce had paid for, holding information that could finish what his father had started. The laptop contained everything. Financial records showing how Sterling Technologies had used her father's stolen software to build their empire. Email chains proving James Royce had known exactly what he was doing. Legal documents that had been buried for 20 years. Amira had spent months gathering it all, using the access Landon had given her to his company's archives. He'd trusted her completely, never suspecting that the girl he'd fallen for was hunting for evidence of his family's crimes. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Landon. Missing you. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Love you. Love. The word made her stomach twist. Did he really love her, or was this just guilt? Some subconscious need to fix what his father had broken? And did it matter? Her father was dead. The chemo treatments that had drained their savings, the stress that had aged him 20 years and 5, all of it could have been avoided if James Royce hadn't destroyed their family. Amira opened a new browser window and started typing. One blog post, one viral social media campaign, one well-placed leak to the right journalist. That's all it would take to destroy Landon's reputation forever. She had the power now. The girl who'd once cleaned his floors could now wipe him off the map. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The headline was already written. How Sterling Technologies built an empire on stolen dreams. The Coleman family story. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the memory of that night in his office, when he'd looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. Maybe it was the way he defended her in the media, even when it cost him political connections. Maybe it was the scholarship that had given her a future she'd never dreamed of. Or Maybe it was the letter from Victoria Hayes that had arrived that morning. If you really love him, you'll stay away. The pregnancy test is positive. We're getting married next month. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Pregnant. Victoria was pregnant with Landon's child. Amira's hands shook as she reached for her phone. She needed to hear his voice, needed to know if Victoria was telling the truth. But when she called, it went straight to voicemail. You've reached Landon Royce. I'm unavailable right now, but please leave a message. Unavailable, just like he'd been for the past 2 weeks. Amira looked back at her laptop screen. The story was ready to publish. One click, and Landon Royce would understand what it felt like to lose everything. Her finger moved toward the enter key. The knock on Amira's dorm room door came at 2 a.m., sharp and urgent. She opened it to find Landon standing in the hallway, his hair messy, his eyes red with exhaustion. "We need to talk," he said. "It's 2 in the morning. I know what you're planning." The words hit her like ice water. Amira stepped back, her heart racing. "I don't know what you mean. The Coleman Technologies lawsuit, the patent theft, the financial records you've been collecting." He pushed past her into the room, and she saw the pain in his eyes. "I know everything, Amira." Her laptop was still open on her desk, the unpublished story glowing on the screen. Landon saw it and went completely still. "How Sterling Technologies built an empire on stolen dreams," he read aloud. Nice headline, very catchy. "Landon, I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for 6 months? That every kiss, every I love you, every moment we shared was just you gathering evidence?" "That's not true." But even as she said it, she knew how it sounded. "Then why didn't you tell me? When you found out about your father's company, why didn't you just ask me about it?" Because she'd been afraid. Afraid he'd lie to her. Afraid he'd cover it up. Afraid he'd choose his family's legacy over her father's justice. "Would you have told me the truth?" she asked quietly. "Yes." His voice was raw. "God, Amira, yes. I would have told you everything, even if it meant admitting your father was a thief. My father was a lot of things. Some of them weren't good." He sat down heavily on her bed. "But I'm not him. I thought you knew that. I wanted to believe that. But you didn't. You decided to investigate me instead, to gather evidence against me like I was some kind of criminal." The accusation stung because it was true. She'd chosen suspicion over trust, revenge over love. "Your father destroyed my family," she said, her voice breaking. "He stole everything we had. My dad died, believing he was a failure, never knowing that his software made you billions. And you think I knew? You think I was part of it? I think you benefited from it. I think you built your life on money that should have been ours." Landon stood up, his face hardening. "So this is about money. This whole thing, our whole relationship, it's about money. It's about justice. No, it's about revenge. There's a difference." He walked to her laptop and read the story over her shoulder. She could feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne, remember what it felt like when he held her. "Are you going to publish it?" he asked. "I don't know. Victoria's pregnant." The words hit her like a physical blow. "I know. She told me." "She told you." He spun around, his eyes wide. "When? This morning. She sent me a letter." Something flickered across his face. "What kind of letter?" "The kind that tells me to stay away from her fiancé." "Amira, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Victoria and I are getting married. I know. She made that very clear. We're not getting married. We broke up 3 months ago." The room went silent. Amira felt the floor shift beneath her feet. "What? She's lying to you. About everything." The funeral was small. Just a handful of people who'd known Ronald Coleman as more than a janitor. Amira stood in the cold February rain, watching them lower her father's casket into the ground. Landon had offered to pay for everything. The funeral, the headstone, the flowers. She'd refused it all. Some things couldn't be bought. The cancer had taken him fast in the end. One week he was sitting up in bed, asking about her classes at Duke. The next week he was gone. But before he died, he'd given her a letter. His final words, written in the shaky handwriting of a man who knew his time was running out. "Baby girl, I need you to know something about the night I lost Coleman Technologies. James Royce didn't just steal our software, he stole our family's future. But holding on to that anger will steal your future too. I should have fought harder back then. I should have been braver. Don't make my mistakes. Be better than me. Be better than him. But don't let revenge turn you into someone I wouldn't recognize. Love you always, Dad. Now, standing in the cemetery, Amira felt more alone than she ever had in her life. Her father was gone. Her relationship with Landon was over. Victoria's pregnancy announcement had been fake, a desperate attempt to drive them apart. But the damage was done. Trust, once broken, was almost impossible to repair. She'd never published the story. The night Landon had confronted her about it, she deleted everything. Not because she'd forgiven his family, but because she'd realized her father was right. Revenge wouldn't bring him back. It wouldn't change the past, but it would destroy her future. Her phone had been buzzing for days. Messages from Landon that she couldn't bring herself to read. Voicemails she couldn't listen to. He tried to come to the funeral, but she'd asked him to stay away. Some grief was too private to share. Victoria Hayes had disappeared from the public eye after her pregnancy lie was exposed. The media had torn her apart, called her desperate, manipulative, pathetic. Amira almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Sterling Technologies was struggling. The FBI investigation had cleared Landon of any wrongdoing, but the company's reputation was damaged. Stock prices were down. Investors were nervous. The board was calling for new leadership. And Amira was back where she'd started, alone, broke, and trying to figure out how to pay for college without Landon's help. Pride was expensive, but it was all she had left. The last mourners were leaving the cemetery. Soon it would just be her in her father's grave and the rain that wouldn't stop falling. She pulled out her phone and finally read Landon's most recent message. I know you don't want to see me. I know you're hurting, but I found something you need to know. Something about your father's company. Something that changes everything. Please, just give me 5 minutes. For him. Amira stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, 5 minutes. That's all. They met at a coffee shop near Duke's campus. Neutral ground where the memories couldn't hurt them. Landon looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was messy, his expensive suit wrinkled, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. You look like hell, Amira said, sliding into the booth across from him. I feel worse. He pushed a manila envelope across the table. I found this in my father's personal safe. I think it's what your dad would have wanted you to see. Amira's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were legal documents, bank statements, and a letter written in James Royce's handwriting. To whoever finds this after I'm gone, I need to confess something that's been eating at me for 20 years. The Coleman Technologies case wasn't just business. It was personal. Ronald Coleman was the better man, the better inventor, the better person. His software could have changed the world. Instead, I destroyed him because I was jealous of his talent and terrified of his success. I used my money and connections to bury him in legal fees, knowing he couldn't fight back. I stole his life's work and built my empire on his broken dreams. The money should have been his. The success should have been his. I'm leaving instructions for my son to make this right. But I'm too much of a coward to face Ronald Coleman myself. I hope someday someone will have the courage I never had. Amira read the letter 3 times before the words sank in. He knew. Your father knew what he'd done was wrong. There's more. Landon pulled out another document. Bank records. He set aside $50 million, compound interest on what he calculated he owed your father. The money's been sitting in a trust account for 20 years. $50 million? It's yours, all of it. Your father's company was worth more than we ever imagined. Amira felt dizzy. $50 million. Enough to change everything, to secure her future, to honor her father's memory. Why didn't he ever contact my father directly? Because he was a coward. He knew what he'd done was unforgivable, so he hid behind lawyers and legal technicalities. Landon's voice was heavy with shame. I'm not making excuses for him. What he did was wrong, but he did try to make it right in his own way. And you? Did you know about this? I swear to you, I had no idea. I found the safe combination in his desk last week. After we... He couldn't finish this sentence. After I tried to destroy you, you had every right to be angry. Your father deserved justice. Amira looked at the documents again. Her father's name was on every page, proof that James Royce had never forgotten what he'd done. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you take what's rightfully yours. You build the life your father wanted for you. You make his dreams come true. And us." The question hung in the air between them. Landon's eyes were full of pain and hope in something that looked like love. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I know I love you. I know I'd do anything to earn back your trust. But I also know that some things can't be fixed with money or apologies." "Some things can't," she agreed. "But maybe some things can be rebuilt. Slowly, carefully, with complete honesty this time. Is that what you want? To try again?" Amira thought about her father's letter, about forgiveness and courage and being better than the people who'd hurt you. "I want to try," she said, "but not as the girl who cleaned your floors, and not as the woman you saved with your money. As equals." "Equals," he repeated. "I like the sound of that." 2 years later, Amira Coleman stood in front of Sterling Technologies headquarters, but this time she wasn't wearing a janitor's uniform. She wore a tailored black suit, her hair pulled back in a professional bun, her father's navy ring on a chain around her neck. Today was the day she'd been working towards since she'd found that letter in her father's papers. The lobby was packed with reporters, employees, and investors. Everyone wanted to witness the announcement that would change everything. Landon took the podium first, looking confident and strong in a way that made Amira's heart skip. They'd spent the past 2 years rebuilding their relationship from the ground up. No secrets this time, no lies, just two people learning to trust each other again. "Ladies and gentlemen," Landon began, "today marks a new chapter for Sterling Technologies. We're announcing the launch of the Ronald Coleman Foundation, dedicated to supporting minority entrepreneurs and inventors who've been overlooked by traditional funding sources." The crowd applauded, but Landon wasn't finished. "We're also announcing a new partnership, Coleman Technologies." Yes, you heard that right. "We'll be relaunching as an independent company, focusing on software solutions for small businesses. And I'm proud to introduce the CEO of Coleman Technologies, Ms. Amira Coleman." The applause was thunderous. Amira stepped up to the podium, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. 20 years ago, my father created something beautiful, a piece of software that could have helped thousands of small businesses thrive. That dream was stolen from him, but dreams don't die. They just wait for the right moment to bloom again. She looked out at the crowd, seeing faces that were genuinely interested in her story. Coleman Technologies isn't just about software. It's about second chances. It's about proving that innovation can come from anywhere, from a Navy veteran working night shifts, from a teenage girl pushing a cleaning cart, from anyone who refuses to give up on their dreams. The questions came fast after that. How would the partnership work? What about the money? Were she and Landon still together? That last question made her smile. "Mr. Royce and I have learned that the best partnerships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and complete honesty. Sterling Technologies and Coleman Technologies will operate independently, but will support each other's missions." After the press conference, Amira and Landon walked through the same hallways where they'd first met. But everything was different now. The power dynamic had shifted. They were equals, partners, two people who'd chosen to build something together instead of tearing each other down. "Your father would be proud," Landon said, taking her hand. "I think he would be. Not just of the company, but of the choice to forgive instead of seeking revenge. I'm proud of you too, for being brave enough to give us another chance." They stopped in front of the elevator where it all began. The same elevator where a scared girl in a janitor's uniform had changed both of their lives forever. "I have something for you," Landon said, reaching into his pocket. Amira's breath caught. It was a small black box, the kind that held promises and futures. "I know we said we'd take things slow," he said, dropping to one knee right there in the hallway. "But I can't wait any longer to ask you to be my wife. Not because I want to save you, and not because I feel guilty about the past, but because I love you, because you make me want to be a better man, because you walked into my billion-dollar world and showed me what was actually valuable." The ring was simple but beautiful, a diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. "Amira Coleman, will you marry me?" She looked down at him. This man who'd gone from stranger to enemy, to friend to the love of her life. She thought about her father, about second chances, about the power of forgiveness. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and sure. "But I'm keeping my name. Coleman Technologies needs a Coleman at the helm." He laughed, slipping the ring onto her finger. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they kissed in the hallway of Sterling Technologies, Amira realized that sometimes the best revenge wasn't destruction at all. Sometimes it was building something beautiful from the ashes of what was broken. Sometimes it was choosing love over hate. And sometimes, just sometimes, the janitor's daughter really could have it all.